This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 6 o'clock when it's time for the sports and breakfast, of course. And I'm delighted to say, back by popular demand, Mr. Mike Porky Parry, who obviously didn't finish all the things he wanted to say the other night. So you're now back for another go.
Well, it's really good of you to have me, Mike. Thank you very much indeed. Delighted to be in this studio with you overnight here at TalkSport Extra Time. What a programme, full of energy, full of bursting opinion, full of people like Gareth A. Davis,
yes,
talking
a top man.
With the greatest of respect to Gareth, a great journalistic mate I've known for many years, talking a bit of cobblers tonight, which...
Well, you didn't agree with him about what exactly?
Well, the first thing listen, first of all, we're going to talk about the Europa League in a minute. Let me ask this question of your listeners, and we'll get on to the Europa League in a minute. If I hadn't told you where Maribor was, if you didn't know that St Gallen was a football team playing against Swansea last night, would you know where St Gallen is?
I'd have to say no to that.
Nobody knows where St Gallen is. Nobody knows where Maribor is. We only just about know where Anzhi is, who Spurs were playing, because, of course, they're one of the richest teams in the world.
Well,
because of exactly, because of the Russian oligarchs. But otherwise, what a pointless set of journeys these teams take into the wild wastes of Eastern Europe to play in a competition that doesn't add up to a row of beans. Let's get to that one in a minute.
We'll talk about that
later.
First
of all, I want to talk about Mr. Gareth A. Davis.
Yeah.
I knew that the guy was slightly off his rocker this evening, what he was saying. He described you, I'm talking about you sitting in the studio, Michael Graham, otherwise known as Old Fatso or MG to me. He described you as urbane and germane.
Well, he's a very intelligent man, Gareth A. Davis. He works at the Daily Telegraph, which I don't believe in your great history of working in Fleet Street you ever managed to quite scale the heights of the Telegraph, did you? I mean, you know, it was all down in the gutter for you, I think you'll find.
You're absolutely right, mate. I never worked for a low-selling newspaper in Fleet Street. Daily Express, at the height of its power, when it was selling 2.5 million a day, and I was in charge of things, right? That's the sort of newspaper...
How many was it selling when you left?
Well,
probably quite substantially less.
Well, let's face it, the newspaper industry has had a terrible time over the years and are declining in favour of radio, and that's why we're all here tonight.
Right.
But Mr. Gareth A. Davis, I mean, he lives in this sort of Valhalla world. What's the name of that world? Narnia, is it?
Narnia, yes.
Narnia, right. So
where the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe dwell.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So there's this make-up world called Narnia where everybody should be friends with each other, everybody should be nice to each other, everybody should be sitting there.
Well, I think that too. What is wrong with that?
Because it doesn't work in the real world. The minute you pass through a turnstile, you become a different person altogether.
But why should that be, though? That's the bit I don't get. I mean...
Well, it doesn't matter whether what should be or should it happen. It does happen. And the reason it happens is because, you see, football is the only sort of war we can fight as human beings where nobody gets hurt. In reality...
Well, hopefully nobody gets hurt.
In reality, nobody ever gets hurt. No, you know, I mean, obviously there have been terrible tragedies in the history of football, which we all know about.
We're supposed to have left all that behind, is my point.
Well, some of them were tragedies that, you know, fires and this sort of thing, the terrible tragedies that we know about in this country, Liverpool in particular, have suffered greatly at. And, of course, those have happened and people have died. So please don't think I'm being dismissive of that. What I'm saying is, on a week-to-week basis, it's combat at the highest level of interhuman activity.
But it should be verbal
with
combat
no casualty.
But it should be verbal combat only. People should not feel intimidated. People should not feel threatened.
That is not the real world, Mike. The real world is that because now the tribal thing, Gareth mentioned tribals several times. Tribes don't generally go around liking each other. The reason that the Middle East is in turmoil is because of the tribal warfare of the people in the Middle East.
They all live in tribes.
It's not an oversimplification. You clearly don't know anything about the history of the Middle East.
Well, I'm not going to get into the history of the Middle East with you.
A lot of Africa can have the same sort of problems. It's the tribal instincts within people of different categories of urban development, for want of a better word, or maybe suburban.
You don't mean urban development.
No, I don't mean urban. I mean, what do you call it in the countryside? Rural. Thank you. Rural.
The opposite of urban, actually. That's the word you're looking for.
That's the word that I'm looking for. And because these things happen, tribal means that...
Yeah, but these are not people that get together on a Saturday afternoon and start banging sort of 8 bells of whatever it is out of each other. They do it all the time because they're tribal.
Yeah.
In this country, we're not tribal, only on a Saturday afternoon.
That's what I'm saying. So when it is, the rules change. Because we go from being completely civilised in a democratic world to tribal, the rules of behaviour differ as well. Now, you know, Gareth's a lovely boy. Sounds to me like a bit of a public school boy.
I think he may be a public school boy.
In his dotage now, like you, he's got long hair and looks like something left behind by Haight-Ashbury in 1967, and an what's the word I'm looking for?
Unreconstructed.
Thank you. Unreconstructed hippie who's floating around Fleet Street doing great work, and I love listening to him. But when he goes to this idea that we should all be big pals, it doesn't work. Now, I remember one time when I was a mere stripling youngster, probably about 14, the only ticket I could get for an Everton-Liverpool game at Anfield was on the Kop. My mate had
When it was
two.
standing only, presumably.
Standing only. 20,000 people, by the way. How on earth tragedies never happened in those days? I've no idea. Because you see it on Match of the Day, where the whole of the Kop would sway down, then all sway back
Well, I was involved in
again.
one of those very nearly. It was the Borussia Mönchengladbach UEFA Cup final, which used to be 2 legs. And I went up there with my sister, who you know well, and my dad. And I was about 12. And I had to be lifted out of the Kop because the water was streaming in at the front. In the end, it was rained off. The water was streaming at the front. It got to about 4 feet deep. So the Kop was pushing back and then pushing down from the back. I thought I was going to die.
It was terrible. Anyway, I was standing in the middle of that. And you see, there is a thing on Merseyside where you can actually sit next to each other, a red scarf and a blue scarf, and get away with it. Because of the way football stadia are constructed these days. But in those days, the only 20,000 people on the Kop were all Liverpool fans. There was no integration whatsoever there. So I'm the only one. I didn't have a blue and white scarf on, by the way. Yeah, you mad. And what happened was, Everton went 2-0 up before half-time. Alan Ball and Joe Royle, I think, scored the 2 goals. And of course, I couldn't cheer. I mean, I was bursting to cheer and say something, but all around me, really aggressive venom about, the Blues and all this kind of stuff. You've got to remember, in those days, Everton and Liverpool vied with each other for the top team in this country. Everton were champions in 1970, for instance. And so...
It's not really a fair comparison, is it? I mean, they were only champions once, weren't they? Whereas Liverpool were champions many times.
I think you'll find in the 80s, Everton were champions twice!
Twice? Oh, wow. So that's 3 altogether, then.
Excuse me, it's been more than that, you oaf. You know what you're talking about. Anyway, the point I'm saying is that it was impossible to say anything there because that was tribe at its best. That was tribe at its best, OK? 20,000 of that tribe. Now, let me bring you right up to modern times.
Yes.
Quite recently, in fact, it was last season, I was in a very nice seat at Villa Park, OK?
What, you mean in the director's box?
Well, it was actually the director's box, but it wasn't like a free seat or anything like that. I mean, I had paid for an executive seat at Villa Park. It so happened I bumped into the Everton crowd, the directors in the ground. They said, come and join us. So it wasn't a free seat. I don't take freebies.
They actually invited you in.
They invited me in. And so, in a director's box, at any ground, as you'll know, there's a divide right down the middle, and the home directors normally sit on the left or the right, and the away directors on the other side with their guests, OK? Anyway, Everton went 2-0 up. We were having a great time. 3rd game of the season, away at Villa. Yes, a nice punch in the air. All of a sudden, this guy comes down, the steward.
The Yellow Jacket Brigade?
No, he wasn't. He had a suit on, because this was a director's box. And he'd been sent over by Doug Ellis. And Doug Ellis, I think, is the life president of Villa Park, of Aston
He's still
Villa
laying
now.
around there,
Yeah, he was chairman for years and years and years. And I was reminded there's a certain etiquette in a director's box.
Etiquette.
Etiquette.
I'm not surprised you can't behave if you don't know how to pronounce the word.
So I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, you shouldn't be leaping up and down out of your seat like that. And I said, well, what are you on about? And I thought people around me had been leaping up and down. Apparently not. I mean, I didn't realise that, know. Anyway, unfortunately, I got admonished also by the chairman of Everton Football Club, who told me you should sit down and behave yourself, right?
Well, you must know that there have been other incidents in your past, which not perhaps so recently, but there have been people asking me, begging me to remind you about this.
Sorry, what's this got to do with me?
Do you not remember this incident? It was at White Hart Lane a few years ago. You were in the director's box once again, or in some kind of hospitality area.
No.
You were swinging. You appeared to have taken your shirt off. You were swinging your leg over a wall. You appeared to be about to dangle yourself into a crowd, which, apart from the fact that it was very dangerous, you were recognised by the Spurs fans at White Hart Lane, and they started singing "Parry out," and then sacked in the morning. Astonishingly, you weren't sacked in the morning.
Hang on, that sacked in the morning chant. That goes on at every ground, every.
Well, it's not usually directed at you.
Every week it goes on.
Everywhere you go, it's directed at you.
It's usually directed at a manager, he's had a bad result. Sacked in the morning, I've heard the chant many times. That is actually a dirty old trick, to bring that up tonight. I'll tell you exactly what happened there. It was nothing to do with... Well, it wasn't my fault at all. What happened
your leg was over the edge of the banister, and you looked like your shirt was coming off.
No, it wasn't coming off. I was the guest of a gentleman who had a box. I got out onto the box before the game. They started mocking me, and one chap, and it wasn't very... It's called the Shelford Spurs, and it's not very far from the fans below, said, "Hey, Porky, Brazil says you've never had your leg over." So I said, "You wouldn't see me get my leg over?" And I put my leg over the edge of the box. That's all it was.
How droll.
No. I was just bantering with the fans.
Yeah, well, you're lucky you didn't get thrown out.
I'm a banterer.
You are a banterer. But if you want to go on YouTube and look up Mike Parry at White Hart Lane, you can find that, obviously, that clip. And it looks as though you're wearing the same shirt, in fact, that you were wearing that day. But that's another story. Mike Parry is with me in the house. We've got loads more to talk about. And I've got some TV recommendations for him coming up next.
Talk Sport. On air, online and on TV at Sky Channel 0108.
I thought you all might begin your tour here.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 6 o'clock when Mr. Alan Brazil will be in the house, of course, with Mr. Neil Warnock looking ahead to a big weekend of Premier League action and, of course, talking about where you sit and executive boxes, and you've been to probably every executive box, I imagine, in the Premier League. Fantastic big game coming up.
And paid for it.
Well, I don't mind if you paid for it, you know, but it's a privileged position and I think you should.
Well, hang on, excuse me, are you against privilege?
I'm not against privilege, no.
Right, well,
but I think when you're in that position, you should behave accordingly, not like some lout.
If I've
taking your shirt off, throwing your leg around.
If I've worked ceaselessly for 35 years to be in a position where I can now afford a decent seat in a football stadium, what on earth has it got to do with a fat slob like you?
Well, if I was
I'm sorry, I'm not being offensive. I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, that's very harsh.
What's it got to do?
You can't bring yourself to be polite, you see. Gareth O'Davis comes in, he calls me urbane, and he talks to me in a civilised manner. You come in here and start hurling insults at me, like some kind of fishwife.
Gareth came in and called you Jermaine. I thought, what have you got to do with
You probably don't even know what that means, do you?
I thought he was talking about Jermaine Greer, the woman who wrote The Female Eunuch, and I thought, what have you got to do with her? Absolutely nothing. What she and you've got in common is nothing. I do apologise for calling you fat slob.
No, don't worry.
That was unnecessary.
Fortunately, I don't take offence.
But what I meant was, you getting off your backside to do anything is rare, right? Apart from
I have a
here.
very complicated life, as I've explained to you before.
Oh yeah, we'll know about that. Ill family abandoned in America.
They're not abandoned.
What I'm saying is,
you're doing it again.
If I get into the old Jag and zip up and down the country watching Everton, I don't mind paying for a decent seat when I get there. I don't take freebies. I always pay for my own seat.
I'm very happy that you pay for them. All I'm saying is that you should take your own advice on board and stop behaving like a complete maniac whenever you're in a place where you're supposed to be a little bit more refined. But never mind all that. What about this weekend? Because, you were talking about driving your Jag up and down the country. And Manchester City, Everton is a massive game this weekend. Everton are still unbeaten. Manchester City reeling from being slaughtered by Bayern Munich over the course of the last Champions League round on Wednesday night. I presume you're going?
No, I'm not.
Why not?
I'm not going because one has things to do in life, okay?
What?
And unfortunately,
what have you got to do?
I'm not going to tell you.
You've got nothing to do.
Excuse me.
You've got no life.
I have got.
This is a man who now spends most of his time following strange animals around at the early hours of the morning, feeding ducks.
I do feed ducks because I like looking after wildlife. I've got to be on the south coast.
Why?
I'm responsible. I'm not telling you why I've got to be on the south coast. Most of my family lives on the south coast. I have to occasionally make a contribution.
Oh, they must be delighted.
They are delighted.
To see you.
Yeah, they are very delighted. Thank you. Yeah,
they pushing the boat out for you, are they?
Like, yes, they will. Well, yeah, they like to see me. Anyway, the point of my story is I have no shame whatsoever in telling you I'm the chairman of the Armchair Supporters Club. What's wrong with that? If you're paying your money for your Sky and your BT, and this is the live BT game at lunchtime...
I thought you had a season ticket at Everton.
I have got a season ticket at Everton.
Well, how often do you go?
I go as often as I can.
How many times did you go last season?
I don't know. I didn't count it up. Whenever I can, I go.
Because it sounds like every other time you go, you make Bill Kenwright invites you into the inner sanctum, so you don't use your seat anyway.
I do use my seat. I do. My seat happens to be behind the director's box, so I sort of lean over and, shake hands with the people.
Is
it
an especially high seat? Is that so why it's up there so you can see over and so you get a decent view?
Oh, that's very funny. There's nothing wrong with being an armchair supporter. If you have to drive, from the south coast, right, where I have to be today, Friday.
So you say.
No, I have to be. You're not here to question my, reasons for being
what you're doing. You still haven't answered the question.
Right, Portsmouth to Goodison Park, 300 miles.
Yeah.
And 300 miles back.
Right.
Total 600 miles.
Yeah.
My back can't do that these days. I'm telling you, it's almost impossible for me to drive that amount of miles at a weekend. And if the game's on television...
You get a driver. You could lie down flat in the back.
No, idiotic, honestly. What I'm saying is, if it's on... What are you laughing at?
No, it was just a suggestion from Dave behind the glass there, which I can't. I'll have to share it with you after the show.
I'll go through there and sort him out after the show. Give him the evil eye through the glass. What I was going to say is, if it's on TV anyway, and it's Saturday lunchtime, I will probably get together with a few friends on the South Coast, right? And we will become the South Coast branch of the Everton Supporters Club and watch it like that. And that's a perfectly great atmosphere in which to watch it. By the way, there is a case to be said. You get much better coverage of a football match on TV than you do being in the ground.
Yeah, of course you do, but it's not the same thing. But in which case, you can probably sit around and discuss the new Everton badge,
Yeah.
because
Well, it's
there was
the
a
old
bit of
Everton
controversy,
badge.
wasn't there, between the new
Yeah.
one and the old one, because they in the middle of it all, they brought out a new badge without any kind of motto on it, right? And everybody went spare.
Well, they brought a badge out, and there wasn't very much consultation with the fans, and nobody quite knows how this badge emerged. And there was a different chief executive of the club when it happened last season. No,
Is
I'm
that the
sorry.
guy I met?
No, I'm sorry, it's
Remember
not.
you
No.
introduced me to that guy at Brentford.
No, Robert Elstone is the chief executive. I'm sorry, he's still there, but there was a director of communications who was a different chap, and this badge came out. The main thing is that our motto, which we've proudly worn since the club was established in 1878, nil satis nisi optimum, nothing but the best,
Yes.
okay, which we stand by, inviolably we stand
You think
by
that's
that.
still valid, do you?
Of course it's valid. Of course it's valid. Anyway, the point
Because I've got a couple of new suggestions for a new badge. If you happen to be, because I know how influential you are with this armchair supporters club.
Excuse me, I'm trying to explain to you where the badge came
Oh,
from.
all right, then,
so
go
they
on.
changed the badge into just Everton because clubs are going for brand. You know, it looks more established to have.
And
a-
also, Latin is a
There you
dead
go.
language.
Well, Latin is a great
Nobody
language. Arsenal,
learns Latin anymore.
Arsenal did it a few years ago. You won't know about that because you don't study football intrinsically. But they changed their badge
Or
from an
even
old
in
one.
depth.
No, even in depth. An old one to a new one. Everton changed without the motto, and now we've got the motto back.
Right, so the motto is, what is it? Nothing but the best.
Nil satis nisi optimum.
Right. How about this one instead? Nihil vicimus. I think that would be much more appropriate.
Nihil.
Vicimus. I know you're a scholar. You went to grammar school.
Yeah, I
You're always
did,
boasting about it. So obviously
Yeah.
your Latin is probably pretty good.
Nihil means something like nothing, but
Yeah.
not quite. Right.
No, it is nothing.
Yes, exactly.
It's exactly nothing.
Yeah. And what's the other word?
Vicimus.
No victories.
Yeah, it means we win nothing.
Yeah, which is a stupid
I think
motto.
that's a much more appropriate motto for them.
I think that should be your personal
If you
family
don't
motto.
want this one, if you don't like that one, here's another one for you. Semper secundum melius.
Semper means easy.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
It means always.
Always, that's right. Segunda
Nothing
what?
like easy. How's always like easy?
What's segunda what?
Secundum.
Segundum.
Right. Which sounds like a Colombian footballer, but it's
I
not.
was going to say, it sounds like a sort of a Buddhist...
I'll give you a clue. It's
ritual.
It's number related.
Segundum is 7.
7.
Yeah.
No, it's second.
Second, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
So
that's right.
far you think it's easy 7, like some kind of country and western song.
What is it?
Like Sunday morning. And then the next one is Melius.
Melius.
Yeah.
Melius is... I know what Melius is. Melius is...
Joe Melius
equal.
used to be a comedian.
Equal.
So you think Semper Secundum Melius
Yeah.
means easy 7 equal?
Yeah,
No, it
equal
doesn't
to
mean
7.
that at all. What it means is always second best.
Always second best. That's
Which
not,
is a much better one as well.
that's
don't you
not
think?
that's not a motto we'd have on our crest, believe me. Nothing but the best means, now you might say, oh, what have you won lately? It's the aspiration. It's the pursuit of excellence. And that is something Everton Football Club will always, always try to achieve.
Well, people give the Arsenal fans a hard time for not winning anything for 8 years, but I mean, Everton, I know they've had the odd sort of, cup victory here and there over the course of the last 40-odd years, but I mean, they haven't really won much, have they? And that's why you don't like the Europa League, because Everton were in the Europa League once, so they got slaughtered in it.
We've been in the Europa League quite a few times, and my object... By the way, Everton have spent 110 years in the top division, more than any other club in existence. Can I just point that out?
What?
110 years in the top division, more than any other club in
Right.
existence.
Congratulations.
Only
Did you get a cup for that?
Only 4 years out of the top in the whole of their history. Held the league championship for more years
So
than
you have
any
been
other
out of
club.
the top division?
Yeah, we went out in 1930 or 29 or 30 for one season, and then we came back and won the second division, first division, and FA Cup in consecutive seasons. FA Cup in 33, and we went out for 3 seasons during the early 50s.
Oh.
Yeah, 3 seasons.
So that's twice you've been out of it then.
Yeah, but only for 4 seasons in total. The Europa
Now,
Cup.
let me
tell you.
before we get to the Europa League, what about this lighthouse? The thing I don't understand about the
not
Everton
a
crest
lighthouse.
is, I mean, it's not. I mean, I know Liverpool is on the is on the sort of water and all
Yeah.
that, but why is there a lighthouse on it?
It's not a lighthouse. It's
What is it?
it's a sort of agricultural building, like a barn.
A barn.
Yeah, and it's in a field, and it's sort of equidistant between Everton and Liverpool's grounds, which
That's Stanley Park now, isn't it?
absolutely the with the Stanley Park, and it just so happens that was a local monument in the days when Everton's crest was put together. Everton, of course, their home used to be Anfield, and we had a row with the landlord over the rent, so we left and went and found ourselves a new ground, leaving Liverpool to establish themselves as Liverpool Football Club.
All right, that's
So
enough about
you have to know
Everton.
that.
That's getting boring now. I don't want to hear any more about Everton.
Well, I'm very
Talk about
happy.
some clubs that are actually in Europe.
I'm very happy. Let's talk about clubs that are in Europe. So Wigan last night beat Maribor.
Yeah.
Where is Maribor, Mike?
Maribor, I don't know, somewhere in Western Europe, I would say.
See, look at this. Look at
I
this.
just told you I don't know where it is.
But they've actually played. Wigan 3, Maribor 1.
Well, they were playing at Wigan, though, weren't they?
Yeah, they were playing at Wigan. But who were they playing?
Well, they were playing Maribor.
And where are Maribor from?
I said I don't know.
Slovenia, you dope.
And where is Slovenia?
Swansea.
Tell me where Slovenia is.
Well, I know where Slovenia is.
Tell me where it is.
Slovenia's in Europe, isn't
Where?
it? Because it's Europa League.
Where is it?
It's Baltic, isn't it?
Baltic?
Yes.
No, we're near the Baltic.
Of course it
No, it
is.
isn't. The Baltic is Northern Europe, right?
Yes, I've
Slovenia
been there.
is in Southern
I've been
Europe.
to Latvia, been to Riga, you know, I've been
It's
to all
nowhere
these
near there.
places. Look, you're trying to twist the facts
I'm
here.
just telling you, you don't know where Slovenia is.
Swansea 1, St Gallen 0. Where's St Gallen?
St Gallen is in Switzerland.
Ah, you only know that because I told you before the show. And Anzi...
Well, you didn't tell me before the show. Why would you then ask me where it is?
Well, because I was giving
Must have
you...
been Gareth A. Davis you were talking
I
to.
was giving you a helping hand. Anzi 0, Spurs 2. Where's Anzi?
Angie is in Russia, isn't
Of course it is. We only know that because it was the richest club in the world when Samuel Eto'o and people went
Yeah,
there and got
and
a
Willian.
300...
And I also know where it is.
300 grand
And I
a
also know where it is because they don't actually play at home. They have to go 1,000 miles away to play in Moscow because their place in one of the kind of Kazakhstan type
too
areas
frozen.
is not only too frozen, but it's dangerous as well.
Dangerous, hasn't got a ground, it's too sort of frozen and all that, so you're absolutely right. So after every training session, a week of training, get on a plane, fly 1,000 miles to play in Moscow. Absolutely absurd. And
But the reason why the Europa League is good, in my view, is that
good.
it's an opportunity for fans. We spoke to some Wigan fans, in fact, in the last round when they were playing a team in Belgium, whose name escapes me for the moment. We had these Wigan fans. They were all in a car. They were driving down to London, having a great time. They were getting into a train, going across on the Eurotunnel, and they were going to have this adventure in a ground which is still being built, apparently. But for Wigan fans and for Swansea fans, they've got an adventure in Europe, and it's fantastic for them.
Complete waste of time, because these games are played on a Thursday night, which means your game is put off till Sunday,
Yeah.
okay? So what it means is sometimes you're not getting back till Friday lunchtime from some far-flung part of Eastern Europe, or worse, Romania or somewhere like that, okay?
Well, Romania in the Champions League. Steaua Bucharest are in the Champions
Yeah,
League.
but they've got teams in the Europa League, right? You get back Friday lunchtime, the fitness coach assesses you, 3 players injured in a ridiculous competition, comes to your Sunday game, you lose points in the Premier League. Your bread and butter is the Premier League. Now, Everton are in a great position, right? We're out of the League Cup. We're not in the Europa League, thank
Great
God.
position to be out of the League
Excuse me, I didn't want to be in the Europa League anyway. Don't mind clubbing that because it's a waste of time. And look where we are in the Premier League. 4th in the Premier League and having a great season. Only unbeaten team in this country. No, I think Sheffield...
I told you I didn't want to talk about
I
Everton
think Preston
anymore.
North End are
I've
still...
heard enough about Everton.
Anyway, the point... I'm not talking about Everton. I'm talking about Swansea. I'm talking about Spurs. I'm talking about Wigan. I bet you their fans would say to you, if they could swap 1 Premier League point for every round of the Europa...
Well, I don't think Wigan would, because they're not in the Premier League, are they?
Well, they'd swap a couple of points in the Championship, I'm telling you, to get themselves back into the Premier League. Those fans would say, yes, give us the points in the Premier League or the Championship, please, because this bum competition, and I make no apologies for calling it that, honestly, it's a second-rate competition compared to the Champions League. After the Champions League... you're nowhere. When you leave the Champions League and you go out and you go into the Europa League, you're going nowhere except Palookasville.
Palookasville. Lee is an Everton fan in Australia. He says you're wrong about what's on the badge.
Okay.
Lee, very good morning to you. What you got for us?
Morning.
Hi, Lee.
The tower is Prince Rupert's Tower, mate. And it wasn't agriculture, it was a jail, it was a lockup.
Yeah, I know, but after they closed it down as a jail, it became an agricultural tower.
Oh, you'll say anything, really. Backtrack Paddy, that's what we call you.
Backtrack Parry, that's a bit harsh.
Yeah, listen, mate, have you not read the historical documents where it was used to store hay? And bales of hay were put in there?
But the and you only have to look at it, the original use was a jail.
I thought it would look like a lighthouse to me. Lee, listen, thanks for...
There's not much agriculture in that part of Liverpool.
Not anymore, no. Not
used
anymore,
to be.
there isn't. Lee, thanks very much for your call. Porky, that's once again a terrible state. Now, I don't know what you're going to watch on TV tonight, but there's a great programme. I've just tweeted a picture from it. You must watch it. It is called Natural World. It's on at 9 p.m. tonight. It's on BBC Two, which I presume you'll have down on the coast.
Is it about ducks?
It's about orangutans. And you know how there are those who think that, they're not that far from you, the orangutan, species as such. It says here, the great ape escape. It reports on a pioneering project to release orphaned orangutans back into the wild. But after years of living in luxury in their sanctuary, which sounds a bit like you after your years of working very hard, will the apes learn to fend for themselves and settle down to a new life in the jungle? Apparently there's a great moment in it where there's actually a picture of an orangutan who has been taught how to open a tin of kippers. It's an extraordinary thing.
I can't believe you're allowed allowed to say this on air? Like, this is a massive insult to me. I get accused of abusing people, and you do that to me, calling me an orangutan.
Don't miss it. It's called Natural World. Apes opening tins of fish. It's extraordinary. This is Talk Sport. That was Mike Parry.